we're here tonight with our guest, Annie Lobert, and her husband, Oz Fox. And so glad to have them tonight. Annie, we just broke in. You were the star in NSNBC right now. I mean, as we came down here, you stole the show. And we're going to talk to you tonight, Annie. Are you ready? We're going to ask you some hard questions.
I'm ready.
You're ready. Annie's always ready. I've known you, Annie, for how many years now?
10
years.
I think.
Annie came to our church in Las Vegas when I was pastoring in Las Vegas. And right away, we started talking and different things. And I kind of left Vegas. We kind of lost track of one another for a while. And that's when you met Oz Fox, the famous musician in Stryper. And Oz, tell us a little bit about what Stryper's doing.
Well, I mean, obviously, the history of Stryper is that we started in the 80s, the mid-80s, 1983, actually. And we went into the clubs of Hollywood, and at that time, there was a lot of bands that were doing more or less sex, drugs, rock and roll style, I guess you could say, just the whole picture of that scene was about that. And so we basically went in with the same imagery, the hair up to the ceiling and you know, spandex and whatever, and we brought our message of Christ to all these people.
Yeah, well, message of Christ with spandex. For some reason, that is really, Annie, I saw your face when you said the spandex.
Yeah, I remember those pictures. I wore spandex too in the 80s.
I didn't wear spandex in the 80s, thankfully.
Well, we're still doing it. We're still out touring and doing albums, and it's been over 30 years now. God's still using the band.
Now, do you guys still do the dress up? You don't do the dress up anymore?
Well, not in spandex, at least. I wouldn't want to see myself in spandex at 55. So
tell me what's the latest thing with Stryper, and where are you going next?
Well, there's a new album coming out this year, and sometime in October is when it's going to come out. It's called Fallen, and it should be, you know, one of the best ones we've done so far, I think.
Annie told me there's a cool song on there called Yahweh.
Yes. Yeah, it's a pretty awesome song.
Put a plug. Now, what's weird is the album Fallen is the same name as your book, Annie.
Right,
Fallen.
and I forgot to bring it tonight.
You forgot to bring your book. Maybe we can get one in the studio here after and show it. I hope we can.
I think we can.
But Oz, I want to have you back on the show. I'd like to get all the Stryper fans and everything, and that'd be really cool because you have some real strong fan base out there.
Yes, there's a lot of people that like Stryper. So,
hey, glad to have you, Oz, and we're going to brace Annie right now for some hard questions coming her way, and we're inviting the audience too for you to you can tweet in your questions. I think it'll be on the screen. It'll tell you how to do that. We'd like to hear your questions. We'd like to have your comments, and that'll all be coming. And so let's start off. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're always ready. Annie was on MSNBC tonight, and she's been on a lot of shows. Tell them the shows you've been on, so if they want to look you up.
Oh my goodness, can I remember them all? It first started with TBN with Carmen, because Carmen reached out to me on MySpace. And then I went on there a couple times, and then Tyra Banks called us up before her show got canceled. And Today's Show, Discovery, Nat Geo, and MSNBC, Nightline. Gosh, what else? What else, honey? Been on a lot of different ones.
Well, you had your own reality show for...
It was a docuseries.
Docuseries.
Yeah. Called Hookers Saved on the Strip.
I remember watching that.
Right.
Well, we want to fire some hard questions at you, and the whole idea of tonight is to ask Annie questions that probably you wouldn't see answered on a television show. And I want to start out tonight by asking you a question. I got 9 or 10, as much as the time allows. But what do we do? I know you're out there, and we're trying to get the girls out of the industry and get them into a home. You've got a wonderful home in Las Vegas that I've been in. But what do we do, Annie, with the girls out there that don't want out? I mean, are there a lot of girls that say, hey, I love what I'm doing, the money's good? Well, obviously, we can't do anything with them.
No.
But the ones that do want out, what can we do to make that transition easier? What can we, as the church, do, as society, do?
So I'm going to answer the first part of the question, because the girls that don't want out, just like me, the first year or two or whatever that whatever season, how long that would be, a lot of them are in a honeymoon phase with the sex industry, and they maybe don't have a pimp at this moment where they're making all the money themselves, and they haven't had a crazy experience yet of a man trying to kill them or become really violent with them. And so it's hard to convince those girls that this is a terrible thing to be doing and a dangerous thing, and it could actually take their lives, you know, until they face that first danger, and then they wake up.
Because you and I, we work the Las Vegas Porn Convention together. We have a booth over there, and I've noticed the older women all hate what they're doing.
Of course.
They hate it. It's the young ones, as you say, they haven't had any hard experiences yet.
Yes, they're
so
like children.
Cool with it. They're like children.
Children are inexperienced, they're naive, they're innocent, and you know, they think the whole world's a candy store for them. You know, it's just like you tell the child, don't touch the fire with the blue flame, it's gonna burn your fingers, and they do it anyway because out of curiosity, they try. So it's the same with the sex industry. The women that are in it, that don't want to get out of it, I would say it's very, very rare that their experiences are constantly positive. Very rare. It's the most dangerous job in the world. And then the girls that are in it that want to get out, they have been abused, they've been, you know, terrorized and beat up by the pimps. And so there's a more open door for you to actually offer them a way out of the industry and out of sex trafficking. I don't really want to call it sex industry because it gives it like a label of it's okay. Like it's a commodity, it's something to be bought. I like to refer to the sex industry as the sex trafficking industry because I would say 90% or higher ladies are being sex trafficked in the industry, so.
You know, they try to make it so attractive. In any way, can this become a faddish thing? Can these girls really think they're cool? They're in the in crowd for doing this? Can they become proud of it?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is what all the media portrays and pop culture, of course. I mean, the first, I think, iconic message and movie out of Hollywood was Pretty Woman. Well, actually before that, Breakfast at Tiffany's with Audrey Hepburn. How high-class movie was that? She was actually a call girl in that movie. It's a great movie because there's a great message behind it because her boyfriend didn't want her to do it anymore, and he basically, at the end, you know, gave her an opportunity to be with him and then get out of the industry. But Pretty Woman sent a very dangerous message, I think, to the women that it's okay, it's high class, and it's a very glamorous lifestyle. You can meet very rich men that look just like Richard Gere in Hollywood, and someone will rescue you out. Now that is absolutely true. In a sense to where there are some rare instances where you will meet a very rich man and he will rescue out. I had a guy that actually took me out of the industry. He wasn't wealthy, unfortunately, but he was one of my clients, and he got me out of the industry the first phase when I quit the first time, but I went back to the industry eventually.
You think some men have, like women have, a savior mentality?
Of course.
And they go, man, I can take this girl, this is my project, on and
Right.
on. And, but yet I know you know more than I do, but at the porn convention, I've actually talked to a woman that had her internal organs injured in the industry by men abusing her, and I felt so bad for this lady. Now the men out there, they don't see that.
No.
I mean, these women are coming to us right and left going, get me out, I hate it, I hate the sex, I've had internal organ injury. And that would turn men off pretty good if they knew that. But they're not seeing the side that you and I see.
No, and I've had several girlfriends that have had bladder problems, you know, all kinds of reproductive problems, you know, diseases that they can't get rid of. I mean, once you sleep with someone and you get transferred a disease, if it's curable, great, but we all know that we have HIV, hepatitis C, A, B, and C, and it's like those things, you can't get rid of them. They're not curable.
They're with you for life.
Right, they're with you for life. And
Shane, I know you wanted to add something here to that, what Annie said.
Yeah, I did, and I'm the random guy on the couch here that's going to be taking your Twitter questions whenever you send them in, but I know that a lot of people know about like the physical damages of the, you know, sex and things like that, but what can you say to the younger generation that's just now dabbling with sex and things like that, that's more on the emotional side? You know, what about sex in the industry that you've been brought out of, the emotional repercussions from that? Can you add anything with that?
I believe and know this for a fact because of my own story and my own life, and many, many, many hundreds of my friends that have been in the industry. The emotional abuse of the sex industry itself, sex trafficking itself, is horrendously you know, in a lot of cases, irrevocable. It's damaging, definitely. And just like when we're teenagers and we have sex before marriage, our hearts get broken very easily, especially the women, especially the young girls. So the girls get into the industry and they end up getting romanticized by a very nice boyfriend that seems to be like the protector, and he actually becomes the sex trafficker. And they use tactics against the women in the industry to emotionally, physically, and spiritually abuse them to keep them in this mindset that they can't escape. So not only does your heart get broken and your emotions get trampled upon, but you know, you become brainwashed, and your way of thinking and your way of dealing relationally to the opposite sex is completely unhealthy. Mm-hmm. It's like every guy you meet, you think wants something from you. And every guy you meet, you think you need to charge him for something. And there's no real love exchange anymore. Mm-hmm. It's always, I'm gonna give you something for something else. There's never any free love or unconditional love any longer.
Yeah. Would you say that it's almost like an addiction, like maybe using heroin or any drinking or anything like that, like sex can become an addiction, like the whole process? Because I know that there's probably some girls out there watching tonight that are maybe even just barely dabbling. Like, what were some of the first things, if I can ask you this question, that, you know, they say like pot's the gateway drug to get to harder drugs. What were the little things that you probably maybe dabbled in that maybe led down this path that some of these other young girls that are watching are probably trying, but they're thinking, oh, this is harmless, but they could end up in like a sex trafficking situation later on?
Right. I mean, just going out to the club illegally, or even if you're 21, going out and drinking. And having that opportunity where someone slips a Mickey in your drink, or you take a hit of that pot that really isn't pot, there's PCP in it, or there's cocaine, or there's meth in it, and all of a sudden you're whacked out beyond thinking comprehension, and some man or a group of men gang rape you, take advantage of you, and now you're being exploited for you being a drunk girl laying on a couch in some random house because you're wasted out of your mind. And now that's an entryway into the sex industry.
Right.
Definitely. I mean, that's for me personally and many of my girlfriends, part of the reason why I felt so justified in selling myself when I was sober. After all these things happened to me, those things happened first. Okay. Is that, you know, dabbling with drugs, dabbling with alcohol, thinking it's okay if I just do a little bit.
Right. Now, Shane, I've got a question that even goes deeper, and this question's been on my mind forever. And if the men are watching, they probably really need to hear the answer to this. But can these girls have demonic spirits of lust? And if they can they transfer them, in your opinion, to the men they have sex with?
And I'd like to answer that with, can men transfer it to them? Because didn't Jesus cast out demons from Mary Magdalene? Now, we're not, no one's solid if she was a prostitute or not, but they did say she had 7 demons. And there's a positive transference of spirits spiritually. Moses transferred his leadership to 70 elders to help lead Israel, right? Out of the darkness of, you know, Egypt. And then it says in, I believe it's 1 Corinthians 6:16, might be 2nd 6:16, but it talks about sleeping. Do we use our bodies to sleep with prostitutes if we're, you know, filled with Christ? Would we do that? And what happens? Because it says that our bodies become one, our spirits become one. And if that's the case, if our body and our spirit and our soul becomes one, then yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you this, that personally with me, when I first was getting out of the industry, and while I was in it, and then just becoming just full of the Holy Spirit and being set free, there were a lot of demons battling for my soul. And I saw them, and in the middle of the night, I'd wake up and there'd be a man, just a man with a dark face standing in the corner, and I would just have to say, and it scared me, but I knew I had Jesus, so I'd say, Jesus, get him out of here. Satan, get behind me. And so I truly believe, for my personal experience, and I've had, actually, I don't want to freak anyone out here, okay? This show should be called Supernatural, okay? I've had them hold me down, you know, when I was still in the industry, and even when I was starting to believe in God, starting to come to church and give my life to the Lord, I had the demons try to stop me while I was in a half state of waking up. holding me down and not letting me move and not letting me breathe, covering my mouth. And I know for a fact that those are demons trying to battle for my soul.
See, this shows, we started to name this show at one time, Real Talk. I mean, there's no boundaries in this show.
Yeah.
So if the people are listening out there tonight and they're going, whoa, you know what, hey, this is Real Talk.
Yeah.
And this blows me away to think, and I agree with you, Scripture seems to say and indicate that when we have sexual intimacy with somebody, that we become one with them. There's an exchange of body fluids, everything else. So in my mind, there is a remote possibility that, like you said, it can go either way. The guys could give demon spirits to these women. They could give them to the guys. I mean, this gets pretty doggone deep.
Okay, now this is even crazier. I just remembered reading this article about this doctor. She did a study on sleeping with different people, and that the DNA from another person that you slept with stays with you the rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
Wow. Well,
physically.
We know with AIDS too, that if somebody slept with 30 people and you sleep with them, it's like you slept with those 30 people.
Right.
But think of the spiritual thing. I mean, do people know the danger that they are involving themselves in? The girls and the guys. Now, to me, this would be a wake-up call for some of the girls going, wait a minute, I never thought of that. A guy could transfer a spirit to me
Any kind
when
of
he's having
spirit, too.
intercourse with me? Whoa. I'm hoping right now, Annie, some girls are watching tonight and they're going, oh my goodness, I never thought of that. So what you're saying is they could get stuff from the people they're having sex with that could stay with them for the rest of their life.
Right, if they don't have Jesus, they
Oh,
can't cast it out.
Now another question with that, and I'm thinking this, Shane, and that is, okay, so if the church is going to minister to these women that are coming out, we better be well equipped, huh? Because most churches out there don't even believe in deliverance. They don't believe in this demonic thing at all. And if I'm right and we're on, then you know this is a whole different ballgame.
Well, it's like people that, there's probably a lot of girls and guys alike out there that deal with insecurity or jealousy or even anger, these things that the core is a sexual experience or even sexual experiences that they're continuing to have. Like you said it before, Pastor, like some of these problems, if not the majority that people have, stem back from, oh man, you had a porn problem that you wanted to keep under wraps, you know. But we do have a Twitter question, if we want to take this, that kind of went back to the addiction. It is from Crystal Hall, if I pronounce that right. What about if you don't get paid for sex? Is it still an addiction, or can it still be an addiction?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. I went on dates as a teenager, and always the boys I would date, it was always an exchange of companionship and love. And for me, love meant intimacy. Okay, so I gave myself whatever they wanted from me, just for them to hold my hand or to hold me when the act was done.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to get paid for that, and I was addicted to it because it made me feel good. So you don't have to be a prostitute to get paid.
What can the church do? Now, of course, I'm a pastor. I have 7 different church campuses. And so what can we do? I mean, obviously, a lot of these girls aren't going to want out. We've seen several that have. So what more can we do? I know financial's one big thing, but what can we do to make an easier transition for those girls coming out?
Well, I think one of the main things that I knew that I was getting a lot of healing from was being in a family. Because see, this is what's missing with most of the girls and most of the boys that get into sex trafficking in the sex industry, just like the gangs. They are looking for a family. They're looking for someone to support them, accept them, love them unconditionally. And if they can't find that in their real home where they grew up, in their foster care, wherever it's at, or a single parent home, or a family that's fighting, divorcing, hooked on drugs, being an alcoholic like my own father was, that they will go look wherever they can to feel accepted. So one of the things that helped me heal was, coming to this church, coming and knowing that I had people that loved me, and that people accepted me for who I was, and they didn't hold my past against me. So that's, I think, one key element. It's love. Love, love, love. And then, of course, we can offer the ladies jobs, but how can you offer a lady job if she doesn't know how to do something? So vocational training, you know, help with that. You can have the community come together and help the girls get their vocational training like we do at Destiny House. We partner with a bunch of organizations, and I think that's really important to set her up in a place where, first of all, she has the family element surrounding her support, and then she has a substantial time to heal. Not every girl's gonna heal the same rate at the same time. So there's got to be this pause in her life where she heals from the PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And then she, after that, when she's ready, socially ready and spiritually, emotionally ready, she can go out and get vocational training and then eventually get a job. And then, of course, after she gets her job, keep supporting her, keep in contact with her, and keep, you know, her friendship, accountability with everyone that's helping her lead her out of this lifestyle.
That's cool. I love hearing people's stories. You know, Pastor Ron, one thing that was great about him was he explained all his struggles and everything. So me as an audience person was like, man, I can relate with that. So someone from you, hearing your story, it's easy for somebody to sit out in the audience and hear what you have to say and go like, oh man, it must have been this easy transition from I was in the industry, now I'm out, I'm healed. It was like all glory Jesus.
No,
like,
it wasn't.
Walk them through, because you said you quit the industry once and then went back.
I did.
Maybe walk them a little bit through the feelings and the struggle of actually how Jesus walked you out of the industry.
Well, here's the thing is that when I was a little girl, I accepted Jesus into my heart, and I don't think I knew what that really meant, but I just remembered what my mother told me, that Jesus was my friend, and if I ever was in trouble, I could call out for him. There was always a sense of God in the back of my mind, in the back of my heart, but like we all do when you're young, we think, oh, I'll deal with that later. And so that's what I did. And then eventually when I did get out of it, it wasn't with the Jesus factor. I got out on my own will, my own self-choice. I had a man that I met that was one of my clients, and he took me out, and the reason why I believe I went back into it is because we ended up making our business very successful. I went to Japan like 8 times back and forth. And we had accumulated a bunch of cars, a beautiful home on a golf course. I had the life I wanted in prostitution, in sex trafficking, given to me on a silver platter. I worked hard for it though. And I was an actual, you know, person that I was an operations manager at my job. I had 11 employees. I was very proud of myself because I had made it finally, but I didn't have any God in my life. And so when we lost our business, everything fell apart. I lost almost everything virtually in a couple months overnight. And I resorted to the thing I knew best, how to make money. I went right back down to the strip and I started turning tricks again. And I got hooked on cocaine. And of course, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I know that sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but it's the only thing that brought me to my knees, because I overdosed and almost lost my life, had a heart attack, and that's when I cried out to Jesus. And after that happened, I know like you just said, it was a glory moment. It absolutely was. It was incredible. I felt his presence, and I was in the hospital, and the doctor told me I should have died. But that walk out of that hospital and into a normal life per se again, after all that I had done with myself, was very difficult. I didn't go to church for the first year and a half. I was afraid of Christians. I judged you guys. I was like your Pharisee.
Right.
I thought, oh, they're going to reject me. They're crazy, and they're like zealots. And I actually thought that, you know, I was the girl with the scarlet letter. So I walk in church thinking everyone's going to say, hey, look at you, you ex-prostitute, you know, just like you're gross. And that didn't happen.
But Annie,
pleasantly surprised.
And that's a great point, because I think in some churches it does happen.
Oh, it does.
And I think you have to find the right church.
I've been to many that have actually had that happen.
In our church in Vegas, when I was pastoring, I saw a girl come in one day. She was obviously a prostitute stripper. I mean, she had the low-cut cleavage on. She had a great figure. She just had every air about her that she was. And Annie, I watched the church scatter. That girl was left by herself. Oh. And so I'm in the back, and I'm in a fix. I'm going, okay, I've only greeted 3 people this morning, but they're going to watch Pastor Ron run to this girl right now. And I thought, this is not going to look good, but somebody's got to go over there. So I beamed right over to her. And I said, sweetheart, welcome to church. Do you have a Bible or anything? I said, we're glad to have you. She started crying. Aww. And so I don't think every church in America is probably prepared for this. I think our church and a lot of churches our style are. But that's a sad commentary on us that we have to think about as churches. When these girls come in, short skirts on, maybe clean, they don't know any better. We have to learn to give them the red carpet treatment. What do you think, Oz?
Yeah, well, I just want to add, it seems to me, because of Annie's story and what is being revealed to the world through all of the TV and media that she's been appearing on, it seems like more churches are starting to change with that.
Good.
Which is good.
Which I think is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so
I
that
hope
being
so.
said.
I hope we hear that message because we had a girl that was in the trade that came to Las Vegas, and she gave her life to the Lord, and we went down and started serving the poor, the homeless, as she wore low cleavage. And some of the guys, it was very concerning to them. What do we do with her? Do we ask her to leave and go change? Of course, my opinion was that we're in Las Vegas. They see the billboards, we're
Right.
fine. But these girls have to have unconditional love.
They do.
And another question that I had, Shane, that I really was thinking about, if we were to stop the flow, in other words, we know these girls are getting into prostitution, massage parlors, I want to ask you about in a second, but if we were to really go and try to stop the flow of girls going in, instead of just getting them out, but also stopping the flow of them going in, where are the majority of the girls coming from? Is it foster care? Where are they coming from?
A lot of the girls come from foster care, but
You know, the sex industry, sex trafficking itself touches every demographic. You can't really stop it. I think the best way is what's going on now with prevention, even having this show tonight, prevention and
education, telling them, okay, if you get on the internet, there's predators out there. The 12 and 13-year-olds are showing
like these booty pictures of themselves, half naked,
and you know what? Bless their hearts, they're
looking for love. They just don't know any better. And so if we can educate these young girls and even the boys, I mean, sex trafficking just doesn't touch the girls. We've got young boys that are transgender, that are thinking that they're a woman and they need to sell themselves to get attention or love or whatever they're not getting from their parents. So I think that education's very, very good preventative measures.
Well, for those women and young men that are out there tonight watching that might be, on the verge of going in, at the end of the show, I want you to say something to them when we end tonight. But Oz, you were going to say something.
No, the other thing that I think would be proactive is somehow to educate those youth that
Right.
are becoming teenagers, to warn them about what they could fall into from all of this. Warn them about what it means to be with another woman when you're not married, or with another guy when you're not married. All of that falls into play with all of this, and make them aware of this industry in some way that wouldn't offend everyone. Obviously, that's a tough call right there for the church right now.
Yeah. It's a very tough one.
Sometimes you just have to offend, sorry.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, Oz, and please bring your comments and questions and we'd love to see them. But Oz, now, okay, you meet Annie. And now, we're going to be real. This is real talk. And all of a sudden, when do you hear about her background, what she's been through, and give me your thoughts?
Well, the interesting thing,
it, Annie, I'm sorry.
the interesting thing about Annie was that I didn't meet her directly. I met her through a friend. I was actually going to dinner with a very close friend of mine from a very famous band, DC Talk. Okay. His name is Kevin Max.
And now he's with Audio Adrenaline.
And at the time, right, he's with Audio Adrenaline now, but at the time he was living in Vegas, probably I want to say it was maybe 2006, early 2007, somewhere around there. I was actually traveling from California, because I lived in California at the time, out there to rehearse with Robert Sweet, who lives out there. He's the drummer for Stryper. And so I just so happened to have dinner with Kevin, and he invited a friend of Annie's that I didn't know. She was friends with her, or I didn't even know her. She had a ministry out that reached out to strippers. So I thought, right, and I thought that was amazing. And I thought to myself, well, that's just kind of almost like the way Stryper went into the clubs in Hollywood and brought a message of hope to people in a place where the church normally doesn't go. And this girl was going into strip clubs. She was a former stripper, and she got out of it and started going to church, and obviously was doing an incredible ministry. Well, then I became MySpace friends with Heather, and I saw she only had a few friends. Back then, MySpace was the thing. There was no Facebook.
It was the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. so beautiful.
And so I became friends with Heather on MySpace, and then she only had a few top friends, because you could do that. You could put as many as 40 friends.
They
She
didn't
only-
bring
then
that
they
back.
get 4.
She only had like 4 on her, and one of them was ex-hooker Annie Lobert.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Because after hearing Heather's story, I thought this has got to be really just the pinnacle here. So I clicked on her MySpace page and I read her testimony. It was like this girl was writing just all the paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff, and I read it all, and I just was blown away at her story and her testimony.
And Annie doesn't pull any punches.
No, she
just
doesn't.
Tells it like it is. She's
No.
not ashamed of Jesus.
Right.
And that's what I like about her.
So I friend requested her, and I actually sent a message saying, hey, and my intent was mostly just to
Sure.
reach out. Well,
I get it.
she
Yeah.
thinks something else, but my intention was just to help, because I kind of understood that Christians could come against her
Yeah.
for
Oh,
what
yeah.
she's doing, and both of them. And I basically
And they were.
and I basically said, if you ever have trouble with people coming against you, I know that whole world, and I'd love to just chat with you about it if you ever have a
Now,
problem.
what'd you think of him?
I thought he was up to something because I saw his rock star
Where I wasn't.
profile.
I
And then,
wasn't doing
and then
that.
Michael Sweets and the whole band, and I was like,
Yeah, I wasn't doing that. I'm
She
telling
sneaked-
you,
she sneaked
God's
you
my
out,
witness.
man, when you
God-
sent the
God's my
MySpace
witness. I'm
I was
telling
like,
you. Anyway,
rock and roller.
but,
no.
but what was awesome was that she actually, in the message I sent to her the first time, I said, hey, I'm friends with with Heather. I met Heather, and we got to talking, and I think what you guys are doing is great. So she calls Heather up and tell her what Heather said.
I said, who is this guy, Oz Fox? And Heather said, he's your future husband. I was like, what? She's like, Annie, he's the guy. I swear to you, Annie, you're going to marry him. And I was like, girl, just quit trying to fix me up with someone. I was single, celibate for, number of years. And
Well, you got to give her kudos for that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's your hair. It's beautiful.
Oh my
That's
God.
what it
You know
is.
what I
It's
mean?
his hair. It's like Samson. See?
Oh.
But I'm not his Delilah though. But yeah, Samson.
So I mean, meeting Annie to me was a miracle. I had been through, the divorce in 2006. I went through a divorce with my wife of 20 years, and that was very difficult for me. And I didn't think I was ever going to meet anyone again. And I felt like, well, Lord, if you're really going to introduce me to somebody, they got to really hit me over the head. I made a list of what I was expecting. I wanted this girl to be in ministry, and I wanted her to really just be totally dedicated to Jesus. I wanted her to be good with kids, and all this
Triple
stuff.
hair color?
No, I didn't say that. But what was funny was God went above and beyond my list of prayer for a woman. Someday I wasn't going to even be with another woman after what I went through, and sure enough, Annie came into the path and just rocked my world. So I thought it
And
was
you guys
awesome.
are legitimate people, I might say, for the audience too. Love hanging out with you guys. I mean, every time we get a chance to go to dinner, whatever. I mean, when I first, Annie, you were in our church. I got to know you. I left Vegas. We kind of parted for a while. I saw you marry this guy named Oz Fox. And I thought, man, I hope I like him. And
Yeah,
then we
because
got
if you
together with
didn't, because you're like a father figure, so it's like,
Talk about someone
Better
who
be a
shoots
good
you
guy.
straight too. This gentleman shoots you straight as well. So no fluff from either one of you. I kind of feel outnumbered here because I'm nice. Yeah. And I'm the nice guy.
Both of us had our people that were looking out for us. She had her people. I had people on my end that wanted to meet her to find out what she was all about. I mean, there was a lot of that.
a lot of
thing
interviews going on. It
Yeah.
was kind of weird.
Well, as soon as I met Oz, I thought, oh man, bingo. And my son said, well, Josh, I could hang out with this guy a lot. And I said, so could I. So you did really well. We got a question over there or comment?
We actually don't, but I have one.
Okay.
I do have one. A lot of people deal with condemnation. After they have either if it's one thing or if it's many things, they deal with beating themselves up and forgiveness, and it really haunts people. And so I don't know if you have any advice for people out there that are dealing with unforgiveness, maybe how you dealt with it, forgiving yourself, forgiving the people that I'm sure that you held blame over, and maybe how did you deal with that the best way?
Well, I love Romans 8 because it says there is therefore no more condemnation in Christ Jesus. And what does that really mean? It means that we are no longer condemned. So if we're no longer condemned and he has taken the blame for us on the cross, then why do we feel condemned? Why are we feeling guilty for something that he's already clearly taken away from us as a gift to us? And I think for me personally, that was a pinnacle moment when I realized that I had forgiven everyone around me, but not myself. And I think that the more that I shared my story, the more I got set free from condemnation. I like to talk about the skeletons in the closet, because when you hold secrets in, they make you sick. And when people don't know where you come from and where you've been, and you're holding something back, that in itself is like a curse. And it really, really is the truth, that the truth sets you free. And so I found that the more I shared, even though my past is so crazy to some people, the more I was less embarrassed, the less I felt guilty about what I had done, and the more I felt empowered to let people know, hey, I used to do this, but now I'm here to tell you the truth, that you can be set free from it. And if I'm free, you can be free too. I'm just an example. And I think that I'll never forget, because I had a pinnacle moment. It's actually, I wrote about in my book, where it was a couple years into my salvation. And I think that obviously the first time we give our lives to Christ and we feel that love and that unconditional just love just pours on us and we feel so free, it comes in levels and stages. And I think as we walk with him, he says, follow me. We continually get set free from different issues that we never thought we had, that we're holding on to. And one of those issues for me was my abortions I had. And I'll never forget, it was Mother's Day. And I was thinking about all the children that I had miscarriages, obviously, too, but that I could have been mother to. And I remember this beautiful, soft voice. I was crying and I was like, God, I'm just so sorry. I murdered your children. And he's like, Annie, I've already forgiven you the first time you asked me for forgiveness, which was when I was still a prostitute, asking for forgiveness when I was getting the abortions. And he said to me, I have all your children, and you will see them.
Amen.
Again. So I think that in itself set me free beyond anything that I had, any chains that I had still left on my feet from feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Let's freeze on that thought for a moment. That's just too cool of a thought. I'm sorry, I know your pain there, but just the way you put that, I mean, heaven is real.
Yeah.
Annie, I mean, I can't even wrap my fingers around it, that you're going to get to heaven, and in God's fantastic plan of redemption, you're going to have how many kids come up?
Do you want me to say?
Maybe you better not.
I will, 10.
You're going to have 10 kids come up and say, Mother.
Yes.
I mean, this is just, and I'm sorry, and man, I know you're hurt and pain, but just getting caught up in the rapture of this moment,
Right.
of saying, how great is our God.
Amen.
That heaven's going to be, I mean, it says that God, eye hath not seen nor has ear heard what God has prepared for those that love him. In other words, God said, I got some huge surprises for you. What a redemptive thing that's going to be. I mean, that's just so, I'm so glad you said that. That's cool beyond cool.
Do you know me sharing that too with you guys right now? Even writing, I was afraid to write it in my book. Writing the book was so painful because there were secrets that I had said in a couple different times that I got interviewed, but I said them very lightly, or I didn't talk about them at all. And one of them was the abortions. But me talking about it with you guys right now sets me free to a new level. Wow. For me, prostitution was nothing. Being taken advantage of by a man or raped, it wasn't embarrassing, but having an abortion to me was, because that's something I chose to do. Even though I was ordered by some of the doctors to do it because I had cancer at the time, and there were some situations where I couldn't have my pimp's baby, I still felt responsible. And so letting people know that I know that God has forgiven me and that he loves me and that I am not going to hell for actually murdering his child. And I know some people might argue and say, well, you physically did that. Well, how many times do we hate people in our hearts? Jesus said so himself. If you hate another brother or sister, that is murder. So we're all guilty of murder in that sense.
Sin is sin.
It is.
Except for the grace of God, every one of us are going to miss it. And Do you have another question or comment?
Well, just going along with that, and I know they have a question coming in, I know a lot of people can be set free and even reach that point, but then people and their judgment can put them back into condemnation. Like, what kind of advice would you give to people that they've been set free, they feel like they've gotten a word from God, or they've just felt the presence of God release them from that condemnation, and then somebody who's just got the wrong spirit comes about and puts it right back puts it right back in their face.
Well, that's another challenge that I had to face, and especially in the beginning of the ministry with the name of the ministry, Hookers for Jesus. People say, oh my gosh, what, hooker? Seriously, girl? Like, yes, seriously. Matthew 4:19 states that we are fishers of, Jesus will teach us how to be fishers of people. So the first 4 disciples were fishermen. They dropped their nets, they followed him immediately. They didn't even question him. So if I'm going to obey God, I am going to also follow him and keep following him no matter how many people come against me. And there's been like lonely nights and days where I would write a blog or do a video and people would come and say, oh, gross, ex-prostitute, you're just disgusting. How can you walk around and proclaim God to yourself? I mean, you're so dirty. And the thing is that what you do is what I did, what I still do, is when people do that, I'm like, I shake it off, first of all. I pray for them. And say, Lord, touch them, convict them, help them, bless them. And I just radically start praying for them. And for some reason, it's the Holy Spirit that anger just dissipates. And you have to learn to kind of like a duck in water with the oily back of the feathers. You just have to let it roll off your shoulders. You cannot take offense with people when they put you down like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Plus, no weapon formed against us.
That's right.
Shall prosper.
Shall prosper.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
That includes insults and pointing fingers at you.
And if God sees you as pure, holy, and righteous, and like white as wool, why does this other person not see you? Because that person has an issue. That's why you have to pray for that person.
That's cool.
And it's their loss, by the way.
I know there has to be a lot of comments coming in. Are we putting up the site where everybody can see?
Yeah, and we have one right now if we want to go to that. Up on the screen. We have from My Girl, what's the biggest hurdle you face when helping the girls?
The biggest hurdle.
Are we talking financially or relationally or socially?
Maybe I'll cover all of them.
Okay, well,
just in
financially,
case.
obviously, it's a struggle because we have a beautiful home estate. And it takes a lot of money to run it, so that would be a huge struggle. But God always provides. Every day that we're there, somehow the bills get paid, somehow. But I would say relationally and socially with the girls, the biggest struggle is when we have a girl that we help, she wants the help. She comes into the home or she comes into our fold of our ministry and she gets the help she needs and she doesn't take the advice we give her. And she goes back out there and she gets hurt and she's mad at us because we won't help her again, or she's burned bridges basically. And she actually will come back and talk bad about us. And I think that's my biggest hurdle, is forgiving someone that I've helped with everything, every fiber in my being for a couple years straight, and then she's talking bad behind our backs. And I think that that's just the immaturity of someone not understanding. We're not just giving a handout, it's a hand up. Like, we're trying to help you. We don't just give you food and water and shelter and money to help you out of this lifestyle. We're giving you tools of the kingdom to stay out of this lifestyle. And when they don't take that advice, and they get mad at you because you won't continue to help them without taking the advice, that's the hardest part, because you want to unzip them, give them all the information that you have to help them succeed, but they don't want to receive it. I think that's, for me, is the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, and Annie, you might not even remember this, but you had called us one Sunday and you had a young lady that came out of this, and you were wanting us to get her somewhere. And so anyway, we brought her in. I was at church on Sunday. Somebody dropped her off with her suitcases, and we were going to get her to another city. And we felt so sorry for her. Our heart went out. Some of these young girls, I mean, they're such cool young ladies. And so anyway, we said, hey, here's some money. We'll get you off to a city. And so in between services on Sunday, and they left with her, and my wife looked at me and said, I feel so sorry for her.
Yeah.
She said, can we take her home with us? And I said, really? She said, no, can we take her home with us? So we called her and said, would you rather go there or come home with us for a few days? She came home with us. She did dishes every morning. She was up, man, cleaning the house. We got her a job, everything. I lost track of her, but I just think that somehow America, I think they deduce, somehow they're able to take the girls involved in this and not see them as their own daughters, their own granddaughters. I mean, I don't see America's heart melting like it should with the sex industry. And somehow they're able to separate that. That's them. That's not like my kids, but these are normal girls.
Yeah,
they could
they
be our
are.
granddaughters,
They
our
are.
daughters.
Well, I'll also add, just because I get to be a witness to all of the things that Annie goes through running her ministry, that a lot of these girls have so many deep, dark issues that it's
Yes.
hard for them to really be, sometimes, well, they like to control, or they can't get along with the other girls.
They don't surrender completely.
They're broken.
Right,
Yep.
right, exactly.
Broken
So
people break
it's
others.
so
Yeah.
hard sometimes to deal with those attitudes, and in some cases, they can't stay at the house because they're just too overboard. And that's the tough part. That's
Yeah.
a tough thing
Having
to
to
deal
let
with.
them go because they're causing fights and they're getting violent or threatening.
Pulling knives,
threatening other
to burn up
people's
the
lives
place,
in the
whatever.
house. Like, it's like, okay, you're not going to live here anymore because
But
you
you know
want to kill
what?
people
But
now.
you know what? You count the costs.
Yeah,
When
you have
a ministry that you're called to, you got to count the
You have
costs.
to. And you're going to get hurt. We had foster kids, same thing. But I want to change the stream here just for a second because I know we're getting close on time. Massage parlors, okay. There might be women out there listening and their husbands always go get a massage, whatever. And massages are great. I'm not legalistic at all. But I believe that probably, could I go as far as say that probably the majority of the massage parlors are prostitution places?
lot
The
of them.
majority, or a lot of them?
I don't know the percentage, but it's very high. It's it's probably more than 70, 80%.
Now, we're not
Our
talking
fronts.
about Massage Envy, those neat places.
No.
We're
Massage
talking about
Envy's
massage
legit.
parlors. We're talking about the massage place on the street with all the neon lights on the corner.
Up, and it's open all night.
Open all night.
Yeah.
I'm talking about those places.
Yes.
Now, please don't get mad at me right now, because I know there's a lot of authentic massages. I know all that. But the massage parlors with the neon lights on the corner, open all night, are the majority of those, in your opinion? Would you think at least a lot of them, let's say majority, you think a majority of those could be prostitution?
Absolutely. They, honestly, a lot of those joints, and they're, of course, ran by Chinese and different countries, actually, that come in here, and that's their business. They have the girls work there, and the girls don't have any identification. They're being human trafficked, and they're stuck there. They can't leave. And I truly believe it's mafia connected.
Okay, that was a question I was going to ask you. Is the mafia still involved with this? They still are a lot.
Now, we have that glamorous Al Capone thing, right, and the John Gotti thing, but in all reality, do I know if the Italian mafia is connected? I'm not really sure, but I do know that there is a Mexican drug cartel, human trafficking with them, other countries. There is
Croatia.
Russia. Every country has an element of mafia in sex trafficking. The sex trafficking industry, the sex industry itself is, I believe it's about 60 billion a year worldwide.
60
Wow.
billion. That is
And United
amazing.
States alone is about 12, 13 billion.
Wow.
And so if you think about that kind of money, second to arms dealing, right? Trafficking is, why wouldn't the mafia be involved? It's like a situation where you can't really prove you're trafficking someone. It's not a physical proof. The person has to testify. Now, if you're threatening someone's life, it's an easy way to control someone. If you tell them you're going to die if you say anything, mafia, right? Organized crime. It's definitely mafia.
So we safe to say that if these men out here, women or wives, husbands, if they go into one of these, again, I want to identify them, the little street corner place, neon lights, open all night, and these girls can hardly speak English, whether they go in there for a sexual favor or whatever, they're still supporting that.
Sure.
By getting a massage there, they're
They're
supporting
helping
that.
them stay-
They're helping them stay in business.
Stay in business and stay in prison to that place. Those girls most likely can't leave. If they try to leave, they are probably holding their passports or any identification. So they can't, just go to the police and say, I'm getting in trouble over here and I'm being held as a slave. A lot of the traffickers, what they do is, most of them, they isolate the girls from the police. So they convince the girls that the police are the enemy, the FBI is the enemy, the CIA is the enemy, and they don't believe that they can get helped, which that's changing now because there's more education. But if a girl in a parlor or a girl in a sex trafficking situation, a call girl or whatever, is not allowed to watch the news, so to not become educated, she's not allowed to have a smartphone to get on the internet to know about sex trafficking, she's still in the dark. So it's very tragic.
Is there anything we can do to get those girls out? I mean, let's say that we got real radical about this tonight, so we're going to the massage parlor, we're going to get them out. Probably very little we can do because of that situation, huh?
Well, I mean, obviously working with law enforcement is a help too, because we can always, you know, we have so much power, you guys, honestly, more than we think. You actually can be trained in sex trafficking to actually spot a sex trafficker and a victim on the street, in the parlors, in the strip clubs, even at the mall, at your workout place, at the gas station, at the grocery store. They're everywhere. It's like they're the invisible people. I was walking around Vegas, driving my car, my beautiful car. No one knew I was a sex trafficking victim because no one back then they were not educated about it. But now, today, because of our internet, how small our world has become, I truly believe that we have a really good advantage to learn.
Why? This is the part I don't understand. I mean, take your big cities, the all-night little places that the police have to know what they're doing there.
Right.
I mean, they're not naive.
Right.
And I guess this is a question we're probably not prepared to answer. Why can't we just go in and shut those places down?
They
Get
do.
the girls
They
out?
do.
They do occasionally, and they just come back.
But yeah, they just go
just come
open
back.
a new place underneath a different person's name. And the thing is that those girls are afraid to testify against their traffickers.
That's right.
They can just, you know, snag the license, shut down. They'll just go to another city, and it's like a tent. They just pop it back up somewhere else.
We got one more.
We got one more question. How do you respond when the people you are trying to help seem to push you away? Now, this goes to what you were talking about before in the previous question,
Right.
but how do you respond to them? How do you decipher, like you said, it's a cost, like you have to weigh the cost of, man, I'm you know, losing this person, but you know, remotely I might be saving more.
Right. So when we do outreaches, we have girls that, you know, we just walk up to just cold turkey because I can tell I used to be there myself, and walk up to the girls that are working and say, hey, here's a gift bag, or here's my number, give me a call if you ever decide to get out. I used to work just like you. And you either get pushed back. I'll never forget this girl that I was in front of Caesar's Palace, the Pure nightclub, and she was like dressed to the nines, but she had her pimp's tat all up and down her body. She was branded. And she was probably about 16.
Wow.
And I walked up to her and I said, hey girl, you know, here's a gift bag. There's some, you know, a Starbucks card in here, and, you know, some nice Bath and Body Works. And she said, get out my face, and went like this to me. And I thought she was about to slam me. And I said, no, it's cool, man. It's cool. I'm just offering you some help. That's all. Go in peace, man. It's all good. God bless you. And that you just have to, you know, let the ones go that don't want help, because at least you came to them and asked them, hey, do you need help? We're available. And not let that deter you from continuing to do it, because out of, let's say, 10 people that you walk up to, at least half are going to take your advice. And it's just like fishing. You're going to throw it into different parts of the lake, see if you can get into any deep waters, catch a bigger fish. I mean, it happens. Like, you're going to get a lot of like duds. But the thing is that those people that aren't wanting help, they do want help. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
They will some point in
Right,
time.
and a lot of them
They
are
gotta
scared.
get broken.
You have to have understanding. A lot of these girls are being coerced, they're being manipulated, they're being controlled. It's the Stockholm syndrome. They're protecting their traffickers. They're brainwashed into believing that their situation is actually good when it's not. And so until they really see the light, and the abuse becomes so much stronger, the pain becomes so much stronger than the situation with the relationship that they don't want to be in it anymore, they're not going to want out.
You know, if we get, like Annie said, we have power. If we would, if this country, if the majority of people would get together, I almost want to start a TV show called We're Not Going to Take It Anymore. And that is, if we'll band together and do certain things, there's power in unity.
There is.
I might start that show, We're Not Going to Take It Anymore. But I remember one image that sticks in my mind, and I don't know what, maybe it was the movie that you gave me or whatever, but I saw a little girl, reminded me of one of my granddaughters, and she had tears, she held a sign, help me. And like at that moment, I wanted to go out, and I didn't care what I would have to do to free these girls. But we're going to end tonight, and here's the way I'd like to end. Annie, I'm gonna believe that there could be someone out there, a girl watching or a guy, that's right on the verge of giving themselves to prostitution or whatever. If they're out there, these young girls right now, and they're thinking about this, and they're on the verge of maybe going that direction, look them in the eyeballs and tell them what you would tell if they were sitting right here in front of you.
if I look back at my life and if I could talk to Annie before she was a prostitute, a sex trafficking victim, I would say to her, dear little one, do you know how much God really loves you? And do you know how valuable you are to the kingdom? Do you know how valuable you are to God, that He is your Father, and that you don't have to do this, and that you selling yourself is not going to make your life easier. It's not going to make your life happier. That exchange that you want to do because you don't have enough food, maybe you want those designer clothes, maybe you want that nice car, maybe your parents don't have the money for college. Let me tell you, the exchange for your soul is not worth it. Look, I almost died. Please don't risk your life. Going into the sex industry is a doorway into sex trafficking and into a doorway of quicksand, that once you put your foot in that quicksand, you get sucked in, and it's likely that you will not come out. Do you know the percentage of people that get out of the sex industry, out of sex trafficking right now, that are getting out of it and they stay out of it? It's 1%. Do you want to take that chance? I am the 1% that got out. Please don't risk your life. Please just have a heart talk with yourself. Talk to a friend that you can trust. You know, I don't know who you can, maybe talk to someone that you feel safe about this, but whatever you're going through, get some help. There's an answer to your problem. There's food at the food bank for you. There's teachers and mentors and moms and dads and pastors that care about you. That whatever you're going through, that difficult situation, you can get through it. And most of all, Jesus can get you through this. If I would have known this, I never would have done what I did with myself. So I want to ask you that please don't do that, and to trust God. There is hope in the love of God. He's designed you for a beautiful and amazing, incredible purpose to change this world, and it is not to sell your body. Your body is sacred. It's designed for one person in your future, and that's your husband or your wife.
You know, that is so good, Annie, and I'm just going to believe that someone received that out there. And I just want you to stay tuned, because we have some amazing guests we're going to be bringing at the end of summer and on into fall, because this show is going on. And follow us at nCourage Leaders. If you would follow us there at nCourage Leaders, you can see who we're going to have, where we're going. And so until we see you next time, I always end with a phrase, and that is, see you here, there, in the air. And we're really glad that you dropped in to be with us tonight. So watch us on at nCourage Leaders, and we'll see you in a few weeks. God bless. Thanks, Oz and Annie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.